The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
While you're here, go ahead and sub up.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Today, we find out what's new in Atlanta with the Atlanta Falcons. And this is a football team that was one play away, one quarter away, one game away from getting to the Super Bowl. And you could argue that they were one of the most consistent teams in the NFC all season long. And they just fell short of getting to the Super Bowl. And you could also argue that they were one or two players away from getting to the Super Bowl. And so we want to take a look at what's new in Atlanta because maybe one or two new parts could get them over the hump this year in 2013. And so we'll see what the Falcons have done in this offseason to improve their chances to not only get back to the NFC Championship game, but take that next step and get to the Super Bowl and possibly win it. So we're down to our last team now. After we complete the Falcons today, only the New Orleans Saints remain, so there is no need to leave a comment at the bottom. This video is brought to you by YouTube subscriber Devin Downing. Double D got the Falcons up, and so we will knock down the Falcons today, knock down the Saints tomorrow, and then we will be done with this series. It's been fun. It's been great, but now it's time to move on to things that are now relevant like training camp. And so this will wrap up this series. Falcons today, Saints tomorrow. So I thank all of you for your participation in this series. It's been fun, and I'm glad to see all of the viewer feedback and all of the people that have subscribed throughout the series and all of those who have participated and picked the team and got one of those teams up next. I really appreciate all that you have done. And so let's talk about what's new in Atlanta. In order to get to what's new, of course, you got to go out with the old. So let's go out with the old in Atlanta. So in order to go out with the old and with the new, whatever the case may be, I need the assistance of not only my big boy that you see behind me, but of course, my handy dandy pointer. I've got both, which means I'm ready to talk Atlanta Falcons football. Let's get to the big board and go out with the old in Atlanta. And all the coaches are the same. No changes at the top. Mike Smith, still your head coach. Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinators, still intact in Atlanta. So you go straight to the players. And you start at defensive end John Abraham. Here's a guy that got you 10 sacks last year. Yes, he's an aging veteran, but he was the best thing you had smoking in terms of getting to the quarterback. And so that's a tough guy to part ways with. I mean, you saw the impact that his injury had on his team going into the postseason. He got injured in week 17 of the National Football League season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in what was essentially a meaningless game that he probably shouldn't have been playing in. Mike Smith wanted to win that football game, send a message to his team that, hey, we're not going to take it lightly going into the postseason. And they had a week off, and so he wanted his players to remain sharp. It backfired. Abraham got injured, and they didn't get pressure on anyone in the postseason. They didn't get pressure on Seattle. Russell Wilson had his career day against them. You look at what Colin Kaepernick was able to do. He lit them up as well because these quarterbacks stood in the pocket unabated. They didn't have any pressure on them because John Abraham was the only guy that you could count on consistently in Atlanta to get pressure on the quarterback, and he was injured, hobbled by an ankle injury going into the postseason. And so they're going to miss John Abraham. And they think they've got a guy that can replace him. We'll talk about him here in the next segment, but that's a tough pill to swallow if you're the Falcons because John Abraham was a big part of why you were able to not only win your division and seal up the number one seed in the NFC, but get essentially on the doorstep of the Super Bowl. John Abraham was a huge part of that. And he's been a huge part of that in Atlanta for about the last 4 or 5 seasons strong. So that's going to be a tough void to fill if you're the Atlanta Falcons. You look at defensive end, Vance Walker. And let me just state that John Abraham is now in Arizona. He just recently signed a contract with the Arizona Cardinals, so he is now a Cardinal. You look at defensive end Vance Walker, and here's a guy that is a rotational depth guy, but he started for you, and he started about half of the season for you, and I thought he played really well in his duty in Atlanta, and I thought that he was a guy that could get pressure on the quarterback, and here he's listed as a defensive end, but in Atlanta, he was a defensive tackle, and I think that's what he's going to be in Oakland, where he is now, and I thought Vance Walker played really well, and I liked what he brought to the table in Atlanta, and I think he's going to be a nice piece on that Oakland Raiders defense. This was a guy that I thought you could hold on to. He got a better offer in Oakland, and so he left to greener pastures in Oakland. No more Vance Walker on your roster. You look at defensive end Lawrence Sidbury, and he's not on this list because of production. He's not on this list because he's a household name. He's on this list because of what he might be able to become. In Atlanta, you drafted this guy and you hope that Lawrence Sidbury would come around, the light would come on. And it never did. And he got you 4 sacks in one season and you thought, okay, maybe this is the start of Lawrence Sidbury starting to get it in the National Football League. It didn't materialize into anything, and so you finally just gave up on the Lawrence Sidbury experiment. But I think he's better suited to fit in a 3-4 defense as an outside linebacker. And in that 4-3 defense in Atlanta, I just don't think he ever really got comfortable. I don't think the Falcons really gave him the opportunities he needed to try and figure this thing out. But I think in a 3-4 defense with his hand out of the ground, I think he's more naturally fit to play outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. And he's in Indianapolis where they play a 3-4 defense. He will be playing outside linebacker, and I think that's the best fit for Lawrence Sidbury. I want to see if this guy takes off in Indianapolis. I really think this guy has a lot of potential. Let's see if it's tapped into in Indianapolis. You look at linebacker Mike Peterson. Here's a veteran that was on this team for probably the last 3 seasons or so. And I kept looking and I kept saying, is he gone yet? Is he gone yet? Is he gone yet? And every time I would look for him and I didn't see him, I think he was gone and I'd yell, hey, Mike, you still there? And Mike would go, hey, why are you so loud? And you know, that's what the old people always say, because everything is loud when you're old. And he goes, man, why are you so loud? I'm right here. And I go, oh, man, he's still here. That's how I thought about Mike Peterson. What are you still doing here? You're like 38 years old. What are you still doing here? Go away. And he just kept hanging around. Even when I thought I got rid of him, he'd come back. An injury would happen, and voila. Here is Mike Peterson back on the Atlanta Falcons roster. I couldn't shake this guy. And even though he was only good for special teams, and they used to use him in goal line package situations when the Falcons were trying to stop teams from plowing the football into the end zone, I just felt like Mike Peterson didn't serve a purpose. Why is he still on this roster? And so finally, at 37 years old, Mike Peterson is no longer in Atlanta Falcons. And I don't have anything against Mike. Mike's a good guy. He played in Jacksonville and was fabulous for the Jaguars for a long time, but I just felt like he was holding on. He'll keep holding on. That's how I felt about Mike Peterson. He just kept holding on. I'm like, Mike, go away. Go home. Watch the game on TV. And so finally, Mike Peterson no longer in Atlanta Falcons. You look at cornerback Donta Robinson. Donta Robinson is an aggressive corner that isn't afraid to tackle. Isn't the cover corner that he once was in Houston anymore, but he's a guy that can do a little bit of everything. He can sack quarterbacks. You can use him as a blitzing defensive back. He's really adept at that. Had a sack and a half last season blitzing, so you can use him in the slot that way. You can use this guy as a physical, in-your-face, press-style corner because he's not afraid to come up and challenge receivers. And again, in zone coverage, and it's cover 2, and he has a area out in the flats, you don't want to throw the ball out there because Donta is going to lay the wood on someone. And he doesn't care if he knocks himself out. We've seen Donta Robinson knock himself out trying to knock someone else out. So he didn't care about his own body. If he didn't care about his body, what do you think he cares about your body? And so this guy is a very aggressive corner. But in Atlanta, they had a lot of things going on. Money was being dispersed amongst many other players. When you got a quarterback like Matt Ryan who hasn't been paid yet, and you got to pay him. You got a guy like Roddy White who's being paid. You got a guy like Julio Jones who is going to have to be paid here shortly. Money dries up quickly, and you got to find ways to free up cap space so that guys can be re-signed that you have to have back. You don't have to have Donta Robinson back. You'd like to have him back, but you don't have to have him back. You got to have Matt Ryan back. You got to find ways to make sure that that cap space is available. So when you want to have Matt Ryan back and sign that deal, it's there. And a guy like Donta Robinson was chewing up too much cap space. He was let go. He's now in Kansas City, and he'll fare well in Kansas City. And they probably would have loved to have had him back in Atlanta, but the fact of the matter is they needed some of that money. They needed to recoup some money from different areas on this roster, and that was one of the areas they felt like they could go and get some money from Donta Robinson, and so he's no longer on this roster. You look at cornerback Brent Grimes. He's a guy that I thought was playing some fabulous football before he got injured. And even though he's only 5'10", Brent Grimes is a guy that's always around the football. He's got hops out of this world. It seems like this guy's like a frog. Because when he leaps up for the football, he goes up and he goes and gets it. And so Brent Grimes was making plays. He was doing things. He was around the football. And then he tore the ACL. And he missed all of the 2012 season. And I thought that the Falcons were going to make a play to keep Brent Grimes anyway. I thought this was a guy that they wanted back. But then it's like they woke up one morning and they smelled the Folgers. And they said, hey, Brent's 30 years old. You know what? We need to get younger at the cornerback position. We already got Asante Samuel, and he's a playmaking corner, and he's up there in age. We don't want two guys out on the edges that are 30 plus. Nah, let's go get us a young corner and let this guy walk away. And that's what they did. Brent Grimes is now in Miami, and he's looking to prove himself all over again. He got a 1-year deal in Miami, so he has to prove that he can still get it done after that injury. And so we'll see what Brent Grimes does in Miami, but he will no longer be in Atlanta Falcons. You look at cornerback Chris Owens. The Falcons love their small, diminutive, feisty corners. Brent Grimes fell into that category at 5'10". You look at Chris Owens, he's 5'9". You look at Robert McClain, another Falcon corner who's very feisty and aggressive. He's a 5'9" corner as well. Falcons love their share of 5'10" and under corners who are just in your face, aren't afraid to tackle. And Chris Owens fits into that description and category. He's a guy that doesn't mind challenging receivers in the slot. He'll come up and press you. And he's not afraid to tackle. He's not afraid to mix it up, get his hands on footballs. And so Chris Owens was a guy that once he hit the free agent market was a commodity that some teams were really looking at. He ends up in Cleveland with the Browns. And so he's no longer on this roster with the Atlanta Falcons. So you look at 3 corners in a row here and you're saying to yourself, Falcons have to do some work to find ways to get guys out here that can cover. We saw what happened to this Falcons team in the postseason when they weren't getting pressure. They were exposed in the secondary. And so guys have to be able to cover these receivers in this league. Donta Robinson, Brent Grimes, and Chris Owens all no longer on this Falcons roster. You look at safety Chris Hope, strictly an in-the-box safety at this point of his career. He can't run in space anymore. He's a guy that you put in the box, and he's like another linebacker. He helps you in the run game. But in terms of pass coverage, he's a special teams and in-the-box safety only. He's a guy that really can't help you any other way, and so he's no longer on this roster. It's Chris Hope. You look at offensive tackle. You look at offensive tackle Tyson Clabo. This one came as a surprise to many, including myself. There's Tyson Clabo, longtime starter in Atlanta. Last 5 seasons, this guy has been an Iron Man for you. 16 games started every season for the last 5 seasons. Straight at right tackle. No problems, no noise out of the right tackle position. Tyson Clabo has held it down. And he did much of the same in 2012, and I didn't expect anything to change. And then all of a sudden, Tyson Clabo is no longer on the roster. And you go, wow, okay, didn't see that one coming. But again, it happens. You need money. Sometimes you got to do some things that maybe you wouldn't do otherwise. Money makes you do some strange things. And a guy like Tyson Clabo, who I thought played well in 2012, like he has done in 2011 and 2010 and 29 and so forth, is no longer on this roster. So now you got to find someone to man up that right tackle position. And I'm pretty sure the Falcons would not have made this move if they didn't feel confident about someone else on this roster. So I'm pretty sure they have a very good backup plan. There's already a contingency plan in place. But that still doesn't diminish the fact that Tyson Clabo was a key contributor to this football team over the last 5 years. And now, poof, he's just gone. He's now in Miami, and he's going to start at right tackle for the Miami Dolphins. You look at fullback Mike Cox. Simply put, somebody has to block in the running game as the lead blocker for this offense. Mike Cox was the guy for a little while. He's no longer on the roster. Find a new fullback. You look at center Todd McClure. Here's another long-time Atlanta Falcon. This guy has been playing for the Falcons and playing well for the Falcons since the 1990s. I want to put McClure on this football team in 99. I mean, he's been around that long. He's been a staple of this offensive line. He's gone. He decided to hang up the cleats after about a good 14 years of service in the National Football League. Tell you what, Todd McClure was a good soldier in Atlanta, and he's going to be sorely missed on this offensive line. You look at running back Michael Turner. Remember when he was Michael Turner, the burner? Michael the Burner Turner. Remember that? Now he's just Michael because he's running in slow motion now. The tread on those tires are long gone. Okay, the Falcons literally ran this man into the ground. 300 carry season after 300 plus carry season will do that to any back. Remember Larry Johnson? Remember the L train? Remember throwing up the little diamond sign for the L and the J after the touchdowns? Remember how quickly that went away? That's what happens when you give running backs the football 340 times a season for about 3 or 4 seasons strong in a row. You run them into the ground. And that's what the Falcons did with Michael Turner. They got Michael Turner from San Diego. He was relatively fresh because he was backing up LaDainian Tomlinson. He didn't get a lot of carries in San Diego, and so he was fresh. He was ready to go. There was a lot of tread on those tires. And he got to Atlanta, and they rode his back. And they got on, and I'm talking about the whole offense got on this man's back, and they rode him into the ground until 2012 happened. And this guy just simply could not chug anymore. He couldn't carry the load anymore, and he was a shell of his former self. And it was not a pretty sight. And they could not run the football. And I think single-handedly, the fact that the Falcons could not run the football stopped them and prevented them from getting to the Super Bowl. And they don't have anyone to blame but themselves. They ran Michael Turner into the ground. And so he's no longer on this roster because there is no tread left on those tires. They are bald. You look at quarterback Luke McCown, back up in this league. You need someone backing up Matt Ryan. He's no longer on this roster. He's now in New Orleans looking to fight for a backup job there with the departure of Chase Daniel in New Orleans. And so now you got to find yourself a backup. I think I like the guy Dominique Davis on your roster already, but maybe you're not sold on him. Look, when you're a good team like the Falcons, you can't trust the backup role to just anybody. And maybe Dominique Davis isn't ready to have this team look to him for a 3-week stretch if Matt Ryan can't go with a high ankle sprain for 3 weeks. And so, yeah, I know. If you got a really good team like the Falcons do and you're a player or two away from getting to the Super Bowl, you can't turn it over. You can't give the keys to a guy that's never played in this league. So, yeah, you'll probably be looking for a veteran backup to come in here and back up Matt Ryan. And that's probably the smart and sensible thing to do, even though I really like Dominique Davis. So, that's out with the old in Atlanta. Again, not a lot here. a lot of stuff that you probably needed to get rid of. A couple of guys that, hey, you really would have loved to have held on to. Frankly, come on, John Abraham. It would have been nice to hold on to Vance Walker. 2 out of these 3 corners wouldn't have been bad to hold on to, but again, I understand what you're doing here. These guys are getting up there in age. Both Dante Robinson and Brent Grimes are pushing 30, if not already at 30, and so I get what you're doing here. Tyson Clabo didn't really understand that one. Maybe that was a money move. I think that was a money move because you knew you had to re-sign Matt Ryan. So everybody else, get out, get out. And so that's where we are with the Falcons in the out with the old section. Now let's go in with the new with the Atlanta Falcons. So you go in with the new with the Falcons, and when you're a good football team, I say this all the time, there's not a lot here. You don't see a lot of shaking and moving because you usually build your team through the draft, and you're looking for cheap labor. And when you're looking for cheap labor, you don't have a lot of money to spend on other guys. And when you feel like you're a player or two away, you don't need to go out and make wholesale changes. You just need to find that 1 or 2 guys that can come in and get you over the hump. And that's what the Falcons think they have done here in these guys that they have brought in. Let's talk about defensive end O.C. Jr. I talked about the departure of John Abraham from this roster. Here is why the Falcons still feel solid about what they can do on the defensive side of football. You can get rid of one aging veteran and you bring in another one that you feel like, hey, I think this guy might have more left in the tank than the one we got rid of. Now, I'm not sure about that because numbers don't lie. People do. Numbers don't. Now, you can skew numbers to make them say what you want. But at the end of the day, numbers don't lie. People do. And I tell you what, John had 10 sacks last year. OC had 6. So, I don't know. You tell me. I know John had 6 forced fumbles. OC did not. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Now, OC was not in a healthy environment. He was in a contractual dispute with the Giants. And so anytime that whole contract situation is on the table, there are other things going through your mind other than football. And that can be a distraction. But at the end of the day, play football. Get it done. And OC didn't get it done last year. And so now I'm questioning whether he's got anything left in the tank. Here's the platform for him to prove that he does. He's on a team that is a perennial powerhouse in the NFC now, a team that is going to make it to the postseason. And they got a rough schedule. And we went over the schedule. I've done that with my schedule release series. And so they've got a rough go. They're going to have to play big boy football. But the Falcons, they're not a stranger to playing big boy football. And so they should be fine. OC has to come in and produce because John Abraham produced. So OC has to come in and produce. Can he? We will find out together. But I know this much. When OC Umenyiora is on, the man is strong all day long. He's like a lead. All day strong, all day long. And so if OC gets you 12 sacks, best believe he's getting you 7 forced fumbles. Because one thing about OC Umenyiora, when he gets to the quarterback, he's looking to get the football out. That's one thing I love about OC Umenyiora. When he gets to the quarterback, he doesn't just want a sack. Anybody can get a quarterback sack. Anybody can get that. I want the football. That's the most important thing to me. Give me the football. And OC Umenyiora is very adept at doing that. So if he's on, he could be a force for this Falcons team. If he's not, SpaghettiOs. Falcons are in some trouble. So you look at fullback Patrick DiMarco. And not going to really go into this in depth. Coming over from Kansas City, Mike Cox no longer on the roster. Patrick DiMarco is on the roster. He's going to have to fight with a guy that was drafted last year out of Wisconsin and Brady Ewing, who tore the ACL and missed all of the season last year. So Brady Ewing is going to have something to say about that because I think that guy is really good at the fullback position. Let's hope he comes back from this injury the way he was before it when he was coming into the league out of Wisconsin. But if he does, I don't think Patrick DiMarco will make this roster, but we will see. So now you go to running back Steven Jackson, and this is the big time free agent acquisition in the offseason that you were looking to make if you were a Falcons fan because this is the guy that you feel like can put you over the top. I felt like the Falcons were a running back away from going to the Super Bowl. You can't tell me that if the Falcons could run the football last year, they don't beat Seattle comfortably. They don't ice that clock down and they don't melt the clock away and eat Seattle alive because they were up 27-7 in the fourth quarter. No one is going to tell me that Steven Jackson on his football team last year gets them a comfortable win over Seattle. And then they were dominating San Francisco for about 3 quarters, maybe a half of football. And then they went conservative, but they didn't have the running back to melt that clock away. Steven Jackson's on that team. They win that football game. You could argue maybe the outcome is the same. I beg to differ because the Falcons needed someone to run the football and be effective. And they didn't have that because Michael Turner couldn't be effective anymore. And so he could be the X factor on this football team this year. That's what they're hoping. And that's what Steven Jackson is hoping. This man has never been in the postseason in his illustrious career to this point. And so he's just looking, chomping at the bit for the opportunity to sniff the postseason. And he should be able to get that with Atlanta, but you just never know. You don't want to count your chips before you cash them in. So we'll see what 2013 holds for the Atlanta Falcons. But I'll tell you what, that's a big move. And you got some people out there saying, well, Steven Jackson is old. There's a lot of tread off of those tires. And you're right. He's not a spring chicken. There is some tread off of those tires. But guess what? There's still some tread left. And this guy can still play football at a very, very high level. And so for those of you who think that Steven Jackson can't help this team, you're wrong. And he will prove you wrong in 2013. Now look, what he does beyond 2013, can't vouch for it. But he does have at least one more good season in him. And that's going to be in 2013. What the Falcons do with it now, I can't say. They could go and have a stinker this year, be 8-8. He still misses the postseason, and that's all he's got left in the tank. Who knows? But I'm just telling you, he's going to help this team in 2013. So you go from in with the new in terms of free agent acquisitions to draft picks. And this is where you see the Falcons did a lot of work. Look at this bottom of the board. Top half of the board, ho-hum. You look at this bottom half of the board, and this is where the damage is being done. A lot of undrafted free agent rookies and a lot of draft picks. So let's get right into it. And if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of the Falcons draft or any other team in the National Football League, I will turn you to my 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series that I have done on every single team in the National Football League. So if you're looking for an extensive breakdown of every single player in this draft, 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. So, cornerback, Desmond Trufant in the first round. You get rid of 3 corners, you got to get some more corners in here. And look, first 2 picks address that need right off the bat. Desmond Trufant in the first round out of Washington. Cornerback Robert Alford in the second round. Boom and bang. Got your 2 corners. So Falcons feel really good about what they were able to acquire in the draft. You look at defensive end Malachi Goodman in the 4th round. Tight end Levine Toilolo in the 4th round as well. Defensive end Stanley Moponga in the 5th round. Defensive back Kamal Ishmael in the 7th round. Safety Zeke Mata in the 7th round. And rounding out the draft for the Atlanta Falcons, quarterback Sean Renfrey in the 7th round as well. So you go from this list of draft picks who are probably going to make this roster to guys who are scratching and clawing and doing everything in their power to try to crack this Atlanta Falcons roster or any NFL roster. I'm talking about undrafted free agent rookies. This is a very extensive list, so let's get into it. Defensive end Cam Henderson out of Central Florida. Running back Devontae Campbell out of Maryland. Running back Ronnie Wingo out of Arkansas. Linebacker Paul Werlow out of Delaware. Linebacker Nick Clancy out of Boston College. Defensive tackle Neil Hyam out of Ohio U. Defensive tackle Adam Rapogla out of Indiana. Wide receiver Darius Johnson out of SMU. Running back Donald Russell out of Georgia State. Defensive back Troy Sanders out of Appalachian State. Offensive tackle Alec Savoily out of McNeese State. Offensive tackle Ryan Schrader out of Valdosta State. Quarterback Seth Dodge out of Texas Tech. Offensive tackle Taron Jones out of Alabama State. Punter Sean Selwood out of Utah. Kicker Jeremy Shelley out of Alabama. Wide receiver Rashad Evans out of Fresno State. Center, Matt Smith out of Kentucky. Defensive back, Sheed Lee out of Alabama State. Linebacker, Brian Banks. Here's the guy that a lot of people have been buzzing about. You know the story in the offseason. This guy was wrongfully accused and incarcerated for rape. It was later found out that he was innocent of all wrongdoing in this crime. He was falsely accused. The lady came forward and told the truth. He was set free. And he was a guy that was on the cusp of having a career in the NFL. Never got that chance. Was given the opportunity after he got out of prison by the Seattle Seahawks to get a tryout. Didn't work out there. Come to Atlanta. They signed into a deal. It's a feel-good moment, a feel-good story. Now let's see if Brian Banks can crack this roster as a linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. You look at linebacker Joflo Bartu out of Texas State, guard Theo Goins out of Central Florida, and rounding out this undrafted free agent rookie pool, wide receiver Marcus Sales out of Syracuse. Very extensive list of guys looking to crack this roster. And you look at all the bodies that are no longer here and how many they really brought in. They brought in some more guys. This isn't the whole list. These are just the guys that I thought were worth mentioning. But I tell you what, you look at this list and it's 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 guys no longer on this roster. I can assure you of this. The Falcons did not bring in 13 more guys to fill in the 13 vacancies that are now there from the guys they let go. So I tell you this, there are some spots available, but you got to remember, you got 3, 6, 8 draft picks. Not all of these guys are guaranteed a roster spot. So you got 8 guys here. You got some guys that they got in free agency, but there are at least 1 or 2 roster spots available. And I think a couple of these guys could sneak onto this roster. Wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2, possibly 3 of these undrafted free agents find their way onto this very talented Atlanta Falcons roster. So we will see how these guys fare in training camp and if they can find a way to crack this 53-man roster. So we go from in with the new with the Atlanta Falcons to any philosophical changes with Atlanta. So you look at any philosophical changes for the Atlanta Falcons, and you got to start on the offensive side of football because this is a team that is predicated off of their offense. If the Falcons are going to take that next step, if the Falcons are going to go anywhere, it's going to be off of the strength of this offense. Tony Gonzalez, Julio Jones, Roddy White, now Steven Jackson, Matt Ryan. If they're going to go anywhere, it's going to be because this offense carries them. We could talk about the defense ad nauseum and how they need to step up and how they were taken advantage of in the playoffs last year. You could talk about that all you want, but this team is an offensive football team led by Matt Ryan, who got that big deal just last week. And so he's ready to go. He's ready to play football. Steven Jackson is reinvigorated, having an opportunity for the first time to legitimately make it to the postseason and have a shot at making it all the way to the Super Bowl. And so he's motivated. You look at this team and they were 1 play, 1 quarter, 1 game away from the Super Bowl last season. And they're motivated to try and get this thing done in 2013. And this is it for Tony Gonzalez. So if you really want to maximize your chance of getting to the Super Bowl and winning, you got to do it this season because this is it. This is the last year of Tony. And you know where I'm about to go with this. This is it. Your last year of Tony. This is it. And you know this is your last year of Tony. You can't string him along because you got close. Tony could taste it. He went from never winning a postseason game to almost getting to the Super Bowl. Tony can taste it. And that's why he came back. But you can't dangle that carrot in front of Tony anymore. This is it. He's done after this year. And so you got to get it done in 2013 if you're the Falcons. You're running out of time. And not because this team and the nucleus is getting older. This isn't like the Houston Texans where you're running out of time because guys are just getting old. You're running out of time because one of your best players is about to hang it up in Tony Gonzalez. Steven Jackson, the guy that you brought in as a hired gun, he's not a young man either. And so you need to get this thing done as soon as possible. And so I think the Falcons, they got to push all their chips into the middle of the table. And this offense is going to take them there if they're going to get to where they want to go. You look at this defense and you look at Nolan, the defensive coordinator. I thought he did a wonderful job last year of really maximizing what he had on his football team. I think they need more talent, and I think that's why they went in the draft. They went heavy on defense, and for a good reason. They need to find a way to force more turnovers. They need to find a way to be able to cover some of these receivers in this league a little bit better. I mean, yeah, it's always helpful when you get pressure on the quarterback, and I didn't think they did that in the postseason at all, and we talked about that at the beginning of this show, and so don't really need to go into that again, but you got to get pressure on the quarterback, but also there's something to be said about being able to just cover. And yeah, if a quarterback has 5 or 6 seconds to find a receiver, someone's going to get open. There's no doubt about that. Can't ask a corner to cover for more than 4 seconds in this league. But I tell you what, there were some guys getting open and wide open on this Falcons. The Seahawks had a field day against this Falcons defense in the divisional round of the postseason. The 49ers had a field day against this defense in the championship game in that second half. And so you can't have that happen. You got to have guys that can cover. And I think you got 2 of the better safeties in this league. You got a heck of a safety tandem in William Moore and Thomas Deku. And so they're not the issue. The issue is at the cornerback situation. And so that cornerback position has to be addressed, and you addressed it in the draft. You got 2 young, hungry corners coming in to team up with Asante Samuel. And so you feel really good about that. You still got a holdover in Robert McClain. And so I think you're really strengthening that secondary now with what you have done. Now you got to get pressure on the quarterback. You got to find a way to get to the quarterback. You're hoping O.C. Umenyor cures some of the ills there. And then you're hoping Corey Bierman wakes up. What was that last year? What was that about? I mean, Corey Bierman did not get pressure on the quarterback last season. That was disappointing. And you're hoping he wakes back up. And you're hoping some of these other guys, maybe a Stanley Mopanga comes in or a Malachi Goodman comes in and gets pressure on the quarterback. And so we'll see what this defense can do. The change on offense, I think, is going to be very minute, very subtle, but you're going to run the football a lot more effectively. And I think that's the one thing you can take away offensively with that. With the addition of Steven Jackson, you're going to run the football way more effectively. You look at the defensive side of the football, and I think you're going to try to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of coming after the quarterback. If you got to manufacture pressure by blitzing, you feel a little bit more confident with the guys that you're putting on the field at the cornerback position. You might be able to turn this defense a little bit more loose if you're Mike Nolan. Go after opposing quarterbacks, force them into mistakes, and with aggressive corners like your first round pick, Desmond Trufant, Asante Samuel, who has always been a nosy corner, you can make some plays in that secondary now. And so we'll see what the Falcons decide to do on defense now that they have a little bit more flexibility and more toys to play with. We'll see how they fare on defense, and we'll see if Steven Jackson is that missing piece on the offensive side of the football. But that's what's new in Atlanta.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.